So this is our first core publisher training, training number 1. In today's training, we're going to talk about getting to know your core publisher site. On our agenda for this week's webinar, we're going to first talk about users in Core Publisher and then navigating the Core Publisher environment. We're then going to cover managing the header in Core Publisher and finish off by talking about the first content type that you'll be creating, and that is the Core Publisher page. Again, if you have questions throughout this webinar, feel free to type them into the question box, and I will get to them as we go throughout our slides. So in our first module, we're going to tackle users in Core Publisher. Our objectives for this training, for this module, are to look at logging into your site, creating a new user, and also deleting and editing users. So right now, I'm going to ask everyone to log into your site. You're going to log into your site at your website URL/user. So right now, that's like wtst.drupal.publicbroadcasting.net/user. That's because right now your site's not live. When your site is actually live, you'd be going to wtst.org/user. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to actually log into the site. And I want everyone to follow along with me as well. Go to your site. And I'm here on our test site as well. I'm just going to type in my user into the username field and put in my password and hit log in. And you see it's going to automatically take me to the Configure Core Publisher site, and we'll take a look at that later on today. If you ever need to request a password reset, let's take a look at that really quickly as well. Let's go back to the /user page. You'll also notice that there is no login button or anything like that, like a user button. So you're always going to make sure to have /user at the end of your site URL to log in. If you ever need to request a new password, let's say, for example, that you just totally forget your password, or it was saved on your laptop and you got a new laptop and you've totally blanked on what it is, you can always click on Request New Password here, also on the /user page. Type in your username or the email address that's associated with your core publisher user and click email new password, and a new password reset link will be sent directly to your email. So make sure that you share that information throughout your team so that they'll have access to reset their passwords. Also, and we'll talk about this more in a future slide, but anyone at your station that is a station admin level user, so that's probably everyone on this call, you will be able to reset those user passwords as well. All right, so let's hop back into our slides. All right, so first, now we're going to actually hop into an exercise. We're going to do our first exercise for the day. So again, you've already logged into your site. Now it's time for us to do an exercise together. One of the first things that you're going to be doing as you build your site is going to be to create users for all of the staff at your station who will need access to Core Publisher. It's a good idea to do this first because you just want to share the wealth, right? All the stuff you guys have to do to build your sites. If you've got lots of folks at your station that can log in and help, the more the merrier. Also, you want to get your team familiar with Core Publisher early to make sure that you're answering any questions or concerns that they have before your site goes live. So it's best for them to have users as soon as possible. I've already created users for who you've identified as your Core Publisher primaries and secondaries. It'll be your responsibility to create users for everyone else. So let's create a user for a hypothetical staff member. Let's say that this user has just started at your station and they need a new user. And you can always delete this post-training so it doesn't, flood your other list of users. Our user's name, her username will be A. O'Neill. Her email address is going to be april@wtst.org. Let's just make that up. Her password is just going to be password 2016, and we're going to make our user a station admin level user. All right, so I want everyone to go into their site. Again, make sure that you are logged in. I'm going to log into our test site as well. and we are going to create a new user. I'm going to share my screen with you all in a sec so that we can do so. Just give me 1 second. All right. So we're logged into our site and we should all still be at the Configure Core Publisher page. So let's go to create a user. Up in your top gray and black admin bar, you're going to see this users link. Let's click on that. And that's going to take us to the main dashboard for managing our users. What you'll see here eventually is a list of all of the users that you've created. Right now, there should only be a few for the ones that I've created based on the folks on your team so far. But we're going to click on Add User here to create a new user. So our user, again, their username is A. O'Neill. We're just going to type that in here. When you're creating users, you do want to use some combination of first and last name. Spaces are allowed, and punctuation is not allowed except for periods, hyphens, apostrophes, and underscores. So you could do something, for example, like this. But for example, let's just leave just text only. Our user's email address is just going to be april@wtst.org. You want to make sure that they're using their work or professional email address. And now we're going to put in our password. For this example, let's all just type in password 2016 in all caps. And you're going to be prompted to enter that twice to confirm that they match. Scrolling further down, now you're under status. So you have two statuses. You've got blocked and active. Just to make sure that your user can log in right now, let's say, for example, that today's their first day on the job. Let's select the active status. And then under roles, you see you have two options, editor and station admin. We're going to talk in a second about the difference between the two of those. For our example, we're going to select station admin. And then the last checkbox is notify user of new account. So yesterday you should have all received emails directly from Core Publisher letting you know that you had a new user. You're going to be sending a similar email to your new user by checking this checkbox. And then once you've made sure that everything is correct, the username, the password, their email address is correct, you're going to hit create new account to create your new account, and you're going to see this green message up here to let you know that your user was created successfully. It's going to say a welcome message has been sent to that new user. So that's how you create a new user in Core Publisher. Let's see, does anyone have any questions about creating users in Core Publisher? Looks like not so far. Okay, so as we just saw, there are two different types of users in Core Publisher. You have editors and station admin. For the most part, you're going to have just a few station admin depending on your station size. The folks that are a part of this Core Publisher building team, maybe your digital lead, perhaps your general manager, maybe a station admin level user. But the majority of your users will be editor level. And let's talk about the difference between the two of those. So for the majority of the access level things are pretty similar. Both editors and station admin can create and manage content like posts, pages. They can publish and pull content from the NPR Story API and the PMP. They can edit your navigation and your footer, create tags and taxonomy, create content blocks, manage your player, and create and manage the content in your community calendar. Those are all things that both editors and station admin can do. But only your station admin will have access to create and manage users, which we just went over, and then also to manage your homepage layout. So keep that in mind when you're creating users. What sort of admin level do you want to give to the folks for the users that you're creating right now? We had a quick question, which was, what does the blocked status mean? So when you're creating a new user, there was an option called blocked. If, for example, you have a user who is going on maternity leave, for example, or they were an intern that's going to school and they'll be back, and you just want to pause their user status, like you don't want them to be able to log in, but you know they're coming back, then you can just block their user. Just go in and change the status to blocked. That's a good segue into our next exercise, which is editing a user. So let's say, for example, that the user that we just created, A. O'Neill, they need to have their password reset. They've completely forgotten what their password is. We're going to change their password right now. So I'm going to ask everyone to make sure that you are looking at your test at your site, and I'm going to go back into our test site and share my screen with you all. You're probably still looking at what we've got here, what we just saw with the welcome message for our user. We're going to go back to our main users admin by clicking on users in this top gray and black admin bar. And when we look at our list of users here, we should all have a new user for the one we just created. If you ever need to edit a user, this is where you're going to go to do so. You're going to click on edit under operations. This is going to take us to a page similar to what we just saw. But what we're going to do is we're going to make our edit. So just like the question asked, what's the blocked versus active? If I needed to make my user blocked, I would do so here. But for our example, let's just change the password to password reset in all caps. And I'm going to ask everyone to follow along as well and just update that password. And then just hit save to save your changes. So that's how you're going to make any sorts of edits that you ever need to make to a user. This is also where you're going to go to delete a user. So let's say, for example, that our new user, April O'Neill, no longer works at our station. They had a very quick turnaround time. They came, they worked here for 3 minutes and 52 seconds at our station, and they don't work here anymore. And we need to delete their user. They're not coming back, so we don't want to block them. We want to remove their user from our site. To do so, we're going to go back to users and we're going to click edit again because we're going to delete their user this time. And I'm going to ask you to follow along and do the same. And when we scroll down to the bottom, we see we have save, but we also have cancel account. So let's click on that. And it's going to give me a few options because the site wants to confirm that I do actually want to delete this user. And I have a few options. I can disable the account and keep the content, disable and unpublish the content. And when we're talking about content, we're talking about posts, pages, anything that this user has created. And then we have some options for deleting the account. We're going to recommend that you always select is the first option. Disable the account and keep its content. That way, if April or whichever user you're deleting was really active on your site, they created a lot of posts or they worked really hard on creating some program pages or static pages, you don't want to lose that content that they created. So you want to select disable account and keep its content, which is the default option. You'll see there's also a checkbox here, require email confirmation to cancel account. You're going to want to leave that unchecked. What that would basically do is send an email to that user to ask for permission to have the account deleted. And in most situations, if you're deleting a user, you probably don't want to have to ask their permission to do so. So you want to just leave that checkbox unchecked and hit cancel account. And when you do that, your account is going to be deleted. It's completely gone, no longer exists on your site. All right. And so I'm hoping that everyone did that as well. Just click on that cancel account. That's what we're going to do to delete the user that we just created on your site. Let's see if we have any questions before we move forward. Looks like no questions right now. All right, so when you're on your site, you may have noticed this already, but you will definitely start to notice it once you are pulling in content from the NPR Story API to your site. That you're going to see a user called editor. This was not a user that you created. It wasn't even a user that I created. This user just exists on every core publisher site, and it helps with the connection between your site and the NPR Story API. So it's really important that you do not make any changes to this user. You're going to see it as the author for content that's pulled in from the API. It's totally okay for that user to be there. Again, just don't make any changes. But I wanted to bring it up so that you would be aware that it did exist. So that is Module 1. Again, if you have questions, feel free to type them into the question box. In this module, we logged into your site, we created a user, and we also edited and deleted a user. A few workflow notes from this section. Again, as a reminder that you will be responsible for creating a new user for each staff member on your site. We do not recommend having your users share accounts because if you have too many folks logging in with the same username and password, it can actually cause the account to be frozen. So every user needs to have their own. Every person, every staff member who needs access to your site needs their own separate account. When you are creating username spaces are allowed, but not special characters. So dashes, underscores, periods, those sorts of things are okay, but exclamation points, ampersands are not allowed. Again, it is common to have more editor users than station admin. That's totally fine. And reminder, do not make any changes to that editor user. All right. So no questions so far. Let's hop into our second module. We're going to talk about navigating the core publisher environment. So in this module, we're going to explore the core publisher admin bar and also that configure core publisher dashboard. So when you're logged into your site, at the top of every page, you're going to see that gray and black admin bar. You've got the home, content, users, add content, configure core publisher, find content, layout, manage queues, reports, and site-wide alert. These are going to take you to some of the most commonly used things that that as an admin you would be doing. I'm going to go back one slide just to quickly point out that if you are a station admin user, like you guys all are, this is what your bar is going to look like. As an editor level user, things are going to be a little different. As an editor, they're not going to see this layout link here, and they're also not going to see users because they don't have access to those admin functions in Core Publisher. So we have a question. Let me see. Good question. So if you plan to have folks as users on your site that already have users with other core publisher sites. So for example, if you have reporters who collaborate, they work at other stations, but they're also going to be logging into your core publisher site, it is totally fine for them to have a separate user on your site. So if they have a user, for example, at WTST.org, they are a core publisher user, it's totally fine for you to create a separate user for them. You're not going to mess up anything in the system or affect their ability to log in. Good question. All right. So I also wanted to take a look at Configure Core Publisher. The Configure Core Publisher dashboard is a powerhouse tool to allow you quick access to some of the main tasks that you'll be doing as a station administrator. So let's all go into our sites and click on Configure Core Publisher up in our top gray and black admin bar. And you see this dashboard is broken up into 4 segments. Fourth one's all the way down there. You have content management. These links allow you to create content, categories, tags, and also get content from the NPR Story API and the PMP. And we're going to talk more about all of these links throughout our next weeks of training, so you'll be very familiar with this dashboard by the end of our training cycle. The next section is homepage management. So just like the title says, this is where you're going to go to manage your homepage, create homepage blocks and header, and also to manage the title for your NPR news page. So any content that you pull on your site is going to show up in a page that's your website URL / NPR-news. You can change the title of that page here without changing the URL of the page. The next section is other site management links. This is a bit of a potpourri of different admin tools. You've got your site wide alert, which creates a text bar that shows up on every page of your site, and a few other links, manage queues, add config. One thing that I did want to point out here is default OG image. That sounds like a very weird name for something, right? The default OG image allows you to upload a default image that will display when you share posts on Facebook that don't have an image in them. So if you've got a post or a news article that's all text, and you didn't get an image for it, and you show it on Facebook, you want to make sure that it doesn't just pull some random image off of your site to share, which the Facebook share tool is going to do by default. So to make sure that it actually does pull in, a copy of your logo, for example, you can upload an image here under default OG image. And then the final section is web services management links. This is where you're going to manage your custom bit.ly link if you have a custom bit.ly URL shortener. And then also your podcast and feeds default. So we're going to talk all about those in a future training. So again, just click around, get familiar with the Configure Core Publisher dashboard. It's basically going to become your home base for managing your site. All right. So that is module 2. We just wanted to take some time to review the Core Publisher admin bar and also your Configure Core Publisher dashboard. Quick workflow notes from this section. Again, when any user logs into Core Publisher, you're going to automatically be taken to that Configure Core Publisher dashboard so you can get started with your station admin tasks. The admin bar, it displays on every page of your site. And just again, as a reminder that your editor level users are not going to see layout and user links because they don't have access to those tools, but your station admin users will see all of the links that we showed. All right, let's see if we have any questions before we move on. All right, no questions. Let's move on to our third module. Now we're going to start to talk about the look and feel of your site, starting at the very top with the header. So in this module, we're going to review your Core Publisher header, and we're also going to create a test header in Core Publisher. So your header is really it's the first thing that people are probably going to see when they go to your site. It's a really visual way to allow your site to stand out and really show your branding and who you are as a station. What we've got here are 3 examples. The top, we have NHPR in New Hampshire. We've got Yellowstone Public Radio, and we have WCAI. So 3 examples of different ways that you can brand your sites. I'd be happy to talk with you guys on your one-on-one calls about ideas that you have for branding for your header. A few things I wanted to point out. The first is that the logo is always going to be to the far left. And always to the far right, you're going to have listen live and support links. If you choose not to use the listen live because you either don't have a stream or you're going to be using our persistent player, which we'll talk a bit about coming up, then you're not going to have the listen live URL. It just won't be there. And if you choose not to use either donate or listen live, then this area will just be blank. There won't be any buttons that'll show up to the far right, but remember that your logo will still always show to the far left. And you'll be able to manage all of these aspects of your header. The header background color, the station logo, the tagline text, and your donate and listen live if you have one buttons. You'll be able to manage all of those. Another thing I wanted to point out really quickly about your header is that it is also responsive. So in the same way that parts of your site will update or will shift around because of the different size screens. The same is true for your header. So we're on WCAI.org. This is the example we were just looking at. And what we see here, we've got the logo, the tagline, the donate, and then we've got our background image. And this is what it looks like on a desktop. I'm going to ask you all to also go to capeandislands.org or any core publisher site that comes to the top of mind. And once you've got that loaded in your browser window, you're just going to start to just drag your your browser and just make it a little smaller. We're just going to make it a little smaller. And you notice at a certain point, you go from the main view of it, the main larger view, to a smaller view of your to a smaller view of your header, more simplified, because this is what your header is going to look like on tablets. So you see the background image is gone and your navigation is now this site menu button. So things are becoming more simplified on smaller screens. As we continue to make our window even smaller, you'll see, let me move this over so you can see that our tagline is gone, our background color is gone, and even the word site menu is gone. We have this 3 bar icon now. We call that a hamburger icon that your navigation now shows up in. And this is what your header is going to look like on a mobile device. So when you're starting to build out your header, I recommend playing around with it by dragging and just dragging your header over to make it your window over to make things smaller so that you can get an idea of what your header is going to actually look like on smaller devices. We had a question that just came in. Can we move the donate button more towards the center? Good question. With the core publisher theme, there is no ability to move that button location. It is going to be where it is. So it's going to show to the far right. That is just a part of the core publisher template. So one of the things that you're going to start to think about, if you have not done so already, is what your header is going to look like. To actually build out your header, that link is under Configure Core Publisher. It's the first link under Homepage Management called Header. And this takes us to another exercise. So it's exercise time for us to get our hands into the Core Publisher admin and to create a header. In the Dropbox folder that I sent to you all, there are some assets that we're going to actually be using to create our header. When we're creating our header, our tagline text will be testing the header admin. Our background color will be white, and our tagline text color will be black, which is all zeros. White is all Fs. So I'm going to ask everyone to make sure that you are looking at your core publisher site. I'm going to go into our test site and we are going to actually build out a test header on our site. So right now I am looking at Configure Core Publisher. You guys should all be here as well. And under Homepage Management, that first link is Header. And when you click on that, you'll see that the header config is broken up into different sections, just to kind of isolate certain tasks. The first thing that your header config asks for is your logo image. There is actually a test logo in our Dropbox folder, so we're going to click on Select Media to upload our station logo. We're going to click on Browse, and I've got my folder located on my desktop. I'm just going to find it. It's under Training Resources. And what we're going to be uploading for this test is NPR logo for header. That's the one that we're going to be adding. And we're going to hit submit to upload our test header for our test site that we're creating right now. The next field in the logo image section is override logo link. So if you're creating, so by default, let's start there. By default, when someone clicks on your logo, in your header, they're going to be taken back to the home page. So if they're on your program page or your schedule page and they want to get back to the home page, they can click on the logo to get there immediately. If you're creating this core publisher site as maybe a news channel or as a radio part of a larger site and you want to actually link to your main non-core publisher homepage, you would put in that URL, the full URL plus HTTP, into the override logo link field. But for this example, we're just going to keep it for our normal homepage. The next thing you're requested to upload is your favicon. So the favicon is this little teeny weeny logo here that shows up when your site is loaded in different browsers. The majority of our core publisher stations have added custom favicons. If you don't have one, you're going to see this little circles favicon here. But there is one in our resources folder that we are going to upload. We're going to select this, click on the select media button, go to browse, and we're all going to add header admin favicon.ico. You will find that your favicons are normally .ico files. That is very common. Scrolling down, now we're in the header background color image section. So this is where we are going to actually start to customize our the look and feel of our header. If you have a background image, like you have some great image of like your skyline or your university that you want to upload, you would do so by clicking on select media. But still don't ignore this background color option because this is what folks are going to see on mobile phones and tablets when they look at your site. So for this test, we're going to leave this as it is, just the 6Fs. You are going to be using your hex color codes for this. You then have your background image position, size, and repeat. So if you have uploaded an image, which is not required, if you don't have one, you can just use a color. But if you do have a background image, and you want it to show up and it's going to stretch across the whole width, you're going to select center just so that it's positioned properly. And if your background image size is to spec, you're going to select normal. If it's a bit smaller and needs to be stretched out, you're going to click on scale to fit. And then if you have just one long image that stretches the full width of the header, you're going to just select don't repeat. But if you have something like clouds or polka dots or little squares that you want to repeat across the length of your header, you're going to select the repeat option. If you're looking for specs on creating your header, like what size does the image need to be, what file type, all of that information is in a blog post that was included in the text of the email that I sent you all on Monday. So take a look at that. Let me know if you have any questions. The next section is tagline and tagline text color. So the tagline refers to this text here. For our tagline, we're going to select testing, the core publisher, header, admin. And our tagline text color, we're just going to leave it because that is going to be white. I'm sorry, it's going to be black. Sorry, getting my colors mixed up. That one's going to be black. The next section is where we're going to be controlling your header button colors. So again, the menu button that shows up really small when you're looking at your site on a mobile device. Then you've got the donate button and the site menu button. And you're going to be controlling those colors here. We're just going to leave them as the defaults for this specific exercise, but you will want to make sure to change these to something that more closely is related to your branding colors. And then you have the button text. You want to make sure that whatever button text color you pick is going to show up and be readable on top of all of these different colored buttons. One more thing to note in this section is that you have this site menu button and icon. I recommend making those the same color just for consistency so you're not confusing your web visitors. And then the last option is header height. So by default, if someone looks at your site, they're going to see this tall header here. And if they clicked on a page like your schedule, for example, they're still going to see the same tall header. So they're going to see it tall on your home page, and they're going to see it tall on interior pages as well. But you can check the reduce header height on inner pages checkbox. And then what'll happen is if someone is on your homepage, they'll see the taller, larger header. But if someone clicks on an interior page, you'll see that the header is a lot shorter. So again, home page, interior page. And the benefit of this is that it helps to bump your content further above the fold so that folks don't have to scroll so far to get to what they want to see. So again, if you check the checkbox, home page, tall, interior pages, a little bit shorter. For this example, let's check that checkbox. So we have a question. If you're not going to use the donate or listen live buttons, do you need to leave those fields blank? Good question. I do believe that you can just leave them as what the defaults are, and it won't affect anything. You'll see that we have two options here at the bottom, save and preview. If we click on the preview option, it's going to let me see what my header is going to look like. I can click This is going to give me a basic version. I can click on return to editing. And if I like what I see, I'm happy with how it looks, I can hit save to save my header. And then let's actually go to our home page. And we'll see that we have our header image, we've got our logo, we've got our tagline, and we've got our buttons, and they're showing up correctly. So this is an example of your header. So this is just a test header. Of course, you're going to go back in, you're going to make some updates, and you're going to use your own logo, your own colors to make this look more like your station's site. All right. Let's see if we have any other questions before we move forward. All right, looks like no other questions about the header. So let's do our Module 3 recap. This module was specifically focused on creating a header for your site, which we did. Again, it's just a test header. You can go back in, and of course, you're going to go back in and make your updates. Few workflow notes from this section. The first is that reminder, all aspects of your header are customizable. Don't forget about those button and text colors. You can change those as well. If you don't have a favicon, that's okay. You'll have the default icon, which is just the little circles. If you want to do some simple HTML, like you want to add a line break or you want to add bold and italics tags to your tagline text, you can do so. You can use some simple basic HTML in there. I saw we had a question to come in about adding a second line to the tag. Yes, absolutely can with HTML. If you're going to be using the persistent player, which we'll talk a bit about in a future week, then that listen live button is not going to display. And remember that you can check reduce header height on inner pages if you want to push your content a little further above the fold. I recommend, once we've started to create posts and pages, check it, see if you like it. If you don't, it's okay to leave it unchecked. All right. So we've got two modules left. The first, we're going to talk about managing your partner footer. So we've already talked about the very top of your site, how you're going to do some branding. Let's go down to the very bottom, start to talk about how you're going to add information and branding via the footer. So in this module, we're going to look at the core publisher footer as a whole and then talk about the partner footer. So when you're looking at your footer, which is again is at the very bottom of your site, it's actually made of two different footers stacked on top of each other. You've got the partner footer, which has links to your logos. And then you have the auxiliary links footer, which is going to link to pages on your site. So the partner footer is what we're going to talk about right now. It contains all of your partner logos, including APM, NPR, PRI, BBC affiliations if you have those, and also any other local affiliations if you're affiliated with a university or a news collaboration, those sorts of things. You can add those logos to your partner footer section as well. So your partner footer is a queue or table queue. This is the first time that we've used this term so far. So I wanted to take a moment to just do a quick vocabulary on what a queue is and how to get to them. There is a manage queues link in your gray and black admin bar, and there is also one on the configure core publisher page. When you click on it, it's going to take you to a list of different queues. Um, so a queue is basically a term that we use in Core Publisher for a sort of admin that allows users, station users, to add information to a list and then drag and drop to reorder it. So your navigation and your footers, there's like a station streams list. Those things are all managed via queues. And again, we're going to talk about all of those throughout our weeks of training. So let's actually create a footer. So this is our next exercise we're going to do together. We're going to actually add just one partner footer to the footer region. Again, there's a link to there's a actual logo in the Dropbox resource folder. So let's all go into our sites and let's talk more about footers. Let me make sure I am sharing my screen with you all. So So where we last left off on header config, we're now going to again go to take a look at the footer. The first step to doing so is to click on Manage Cues in our top gray and black admin bar. And you see we've got navigation. We're going to talk about that later. We have two footers, partner, and auxiliary links. We're going to save auxiliary links for next week and click on partner footer now. All right, it looks like I already have. So let's start first by talking about the partner label text section. So this is not required. You're not required to have partner label text, but I wanted to show you an example of what that actually looks like. So we're on wvpe.org. And right here, they have this text right above their partner footer section that just says partners. So this could say something like support provided by or station partners, something like that. Or I've also seen, so this is on radio.wosu.org. They actually chose to just put their entire address, their contact information, and a service of the Ohio State University. They chose to put all of that into the top section in your footer admin, which is partner label text. So you can do that as well. It's completely up to you as to what you choose to add to the partner label text. For this example, what we're going to do is we are going to put support provided by, and then a colon. You should right now just see one row in your table queue for your partner footer. Let's first scroll down to the bottom and talk about how to add more rows. You see you have this queue settings section here. Right now, I'm sure that yours probably just says one, but let's say that you wanted to actually have 6 rows. So right now you have 1, you really want to have 6. You would change number of rows to 6 and then hit rebuild. And you'll see that new rows have been added. So I'm going to ask everyone to do that as well. Go to number of rows, type in 6 and hit rebuild. All right. So you should have 6 blank rows. I'm going to blank my rows out as well. So let's start from scratch. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a logo. So all of us, what we're going to do is we are going to click on Select Media. We're going to go to Browse. And for this exercise, let's just go back to our training resources folder. And we're going to select NPR footer logo. And then we're going to submit. In the Dropbox folder, in the email that was sent to you all on Monday, there's also a link to a Dropbox folder that has some of the most commonly used partner footer logos. We wanted to try to make it a little easier for you guys to find some of them. Things like, again, BBC, PRI, NPR. We provided those for you. All that you'll need to provide will be the footer logos for your local affiliates. And what you'll see is a white rectangle. Looks like there's no image at all, but that's okay, there actually is. We recommend using white logos on a transparent background. Just shows up a lot better in the footer if you've got the transparent background. So even if your logo has different colors in it, if it's maybe for your university and it's a golden eagle or something like that, it's okay to use that as long as it's got a transparent background. So the first field is image URL. This is just asking what URL do you want your web visitors to be taken to when they click on this logo. Since this is the NPR logo, we're going to put in npr.org, and we're going to use the full HTML, including the HTTP. And then the image alt text field, we're going to be putting in what folks will see if they hover over the logo. And so what we're all going to type in is NPR. That's all we're going to put in there. So if this was, for example, the logo for your local university, you would put Flying Eagles University or something like that, or University of Flying Eagles. And then the last option is new window. So if this is a link to a page that does not exist on your core publisher site, which it probably will be, you want to check the new window checkbox. So if someone clicks on that logo, it'll open in a different window and not take the user away from your site. We're going to then scroll down to the bottom and hit Save Queue. You have to make sure to hit Save Queue to save your changes with any of our table queues. So let's go now back to our homepage, and we see that we now have our first logo added to our footer. So this is the first bit of your homework done because we've already added the first logo. One more thing I wanted to show you, going back to the partner footer admin, is let's say that you have the NPR logo, but you really wanted to have the logo for your university first. They actually require it, that their logo is first in the footer. No worries. Just go to a blank field, click on the crossed arrows, and just drag it up. You're just going to use drag and drop to change the order of any of the logos, and you'll notice that no changes will be made until you hit save. In terms of the order, the logo at the top is the logo that's going to show up to the far left. All right. So that is taking a look at your footer. Again, that's something that we're going to ask you guys to start to work on as a part of your homework for this week. So in this module, that was what we talked about. Your partner footer shows up at the very bottom of every core publisher page, and it's the first half, the top half of your core publisher footer. Remember that if you want your web visitors, if they click on a link in your logo, to be taken to a different window, that you're going to check the new window checkbox. And also remember to take a look at the email that I sent on Monday for a link to a folder containing some of the commonly, sorry about that, used partner logos, just to make things a little easier for you. And then remember that we do recommend having your logos have a transparent background so that they show up better in the footer. All right, so our final module for this week, we're going to talk about creating and managing pages. This is the first content type we're going to be introducing to you. Also in this module, we're going to introduce pages and talk about how to create them in Core Publisher. And we're starting with pages in the first week because they are the main backbone and structure of your site. They are the static pages, the informational pages of your site, things like about us, contact information, commenting policy, privacy policy, things like that. The real backbone of your site. Um, any static pages are going to be pages in Core Publisher, and you can embed widgets, iframes, CSS. You can put that sort of thing into pages as they do have full HTML. Pages are the only content type in Core Publisher with full HTML access, and so I do recommend taking advantage of that and giving your pages a real dynamic feel. To get to the page admin, we're going to be going to add content and then selecting page. So that takes us again to our final exercise. It is again exercise time. Final exercise for today's training. We're going to be creating a test page. So there are a few things from the training box you're going to want to grab from that resources training folder. The first is that there is a text file in there. You want to double click and open that now. We're going to be copying and pasting from that. And then also there's a logo that we're going to be image we're going to be uploading, and our page title is going to be testing about us. All right. So let's all again, before we go into our site, let's go into our resources folder, and I'm going to do the same right now as well, and just open up that text for people page. And you're just going to want to copy that. Just select the whole text and hit copy so you have it on your clipboard. We're just going to paste it into a page. So this is where we should all be right now, still on our partner footer header admin perhaps. We're going to go to add content in our top gray and black admin bar. And add content is where we're going to see a list of all the different content types that you have access to in Core Publisher. And remember, for this exercise, we are going to be creating a page. When you click on page, it's going to take you to the main admin. First, we're going to enter our title, which is testing about us. In the body section, let's just paste in that test text that you all copied from the text file in the resources folder. This is just some plain text, and you can put any sort of text in here. One quick thing I wanted to just take a look at before we move forward, sorry about that, is I wanted to just really cover the different things that you can do with the body of a page. What we're looking at here first, this is from wuwf.org. This is their weather page, and it starts off with some plain text. And then as we scroll down, we see that this is not their site anymore. This is an iframe that they actually embedded from the Florida Public Radio Emergency Network. So you can put a full iframe of another page or a widget into your site. Or you can do something just as simple as having a title, an image, and a little bit of text. So you can be very dynamic in terms of what you can put into the body of a page. Let's go back, all the way back into our admin. So we're back on the body section. If I had to embed, maybe I grabbed a widget, I wanted to throw it in. I'm going to put my cursor where I want it to go. I'm going to hit source. I'm going to go into the HTML. I'm going to find where I want my widget to go. I'm going to paste it in. I'm going to click on source for that. I can also add an image. I can do some bold, some numbered list, but let's add a quick inline image. I'm going to click on the image option, which again is the icon to the far right. I'm going to click on that. And I'm just going to upload. And what we're going to upload here is going to be image for page, this generic image here. We're just going to upload that and hit submit. And you're going to be prompted to enter a caption. I do recommend entering one. I'm just going to put in our team for this example. And also, let's make this image wide aligned. Also, when you're grabbing images, whether there's something that someone took on their camera or something from the internet, make sure that you are putting in the credit agency, all that other good stuff. And let's hit save. It's going to pull our image in to our post. But you can also add images that'll show up by default left aligned at the far top. So let's add the image, the same image here in the image gallery so that we can take a look at the difference. So we're still just going to upload image for page, and we're going to hit submit. It's going to automatically pull it in, and that is under page assets. And you see that you can add multiple images here. So if you wanted to do a slideshow on a page, this is how you could do so. Just remember that slideshow is going to be at the very top, left aligned. And the last option that you have under pages is to upload a PDF. So this is not going to embed a PDF in a readable format where someone can just scroll it on your page, but it will provide a link at the very bottom of the page under the page body that someone can click on to download the PDF onto their local device. So if you had, a annual report or an EEO report or something that you wanted to share, you could do so in the PDF section. You'll also see this checkbox display this page as full width. That's a relic from an older theme from Core Publisher. You can ignore that and just hit Save Page to save your new page. You'll see that you get a message telling you that your page has been created successfully. You've got your title and you have your image. It's going to show up there. Let's give it a second to see if we can get that other image to show up. Looks like okay. You'll also notice that you have view and edit tabs that'll show up when you're logged in. You're going to see this for every piece of content, view and edit. If you ever need to edit a page, you can just click on the edit tab to take you straight back to the same form. Let's say, for example, that we wanted to change this period to an exclamation point. We could do that. And then we can hit save page again to save our update. One more thing I also wanted to note in terms of your pages is that whatever the title is also going to inform the URL. So our page title is testing about us. Our page URL is testing dash about dash us. So keep that in mind when you are creating your pages as well. Okay, so we just created a page and we also talked about editing a page in Core Publisher. So we just talked about editing. We just did our edit exercise. And so now we're on our recap. Um, in this module, what we did was we created and edited a page. A few workflow notes from this section. The first is that, as a reminder, you have full HTML access on those pages, so please keep that in mind. When you are creating your pages, that you can add widgets, CSS, tables, iframes. They can all be added to your pages only. They are the only content type in Core Publisher with full HTML. Any underwriting is also going to display on your pages unless you choose to do some sort of targeting against it. They're always going to show up to the far right. And remember to click on the Edit tab to make changes to any piece of content, including your pages. So some next steps and homework for this week. The first is that we're going to ask you to start to create your users, start to work on your header, explore the core publisher environment some more. Remember, this is not front facing, so you can't break anything, and nothing that you do is going to affect something that your web visitors are going to see. So feel free to start to play around, click around the configure core publisher dashboard, bring any questions to your check-in call, start to work on your partner footer, and also start to create some of the core pages that you know you're going to need. Take a look at your current site and think about what pages that exist there you're going to want to copy over to Core Publisher. So that is our first training. Again, we talked about users, we talked about navigating the core publisher environment, managing your header. We also talked about your partner footer, forgot to add that one to the agenda, and also managing your pages. So if you have any questions, feel free to bring them to our check-in calls. Send me an email, give me a call. Just I know, remember, I am here to help. And thanks for following along on our exercises today. You can go ahead and delete any of the test content that we created. But thanks for joining me for today's call. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all later this week. Bye.